me create the streaming link so I can share with the students, and then we will good to go. Just a couple
Yeah.
of minutes. And we already have 60 attendees join into this webinar. So we do have a Q&A section here.
Mm-hmm. And is the lighting is okay? Can you see me clearly? I can't hear you.
We are setting up a few things.
Okay. I can't hear.
Just a minute, sir. I think we are live on YouTube now. Okay. Okay. Yes, Yogendra, you can start.
Yeah, I have a problem. I am not. I don't see any control. I lost my control. I can't see the screen. Share screen disappear. I lost control of my mouse as well. So is there anything you've done from? Okay, got it. I'm back. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, very good afternoon to one and all present here, and I welcome our esteemed guest, Mr. Lalit Yagnik. So, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Lalit Yagnik to all of you. So, Mr. Lalit Yagnik has experience of over 25 years in driving digital transformation from IBM, Australia, Singapore, and India, and he is consulting various startups now. Uh, in this previous to prior to 2014, he was working with the IBM in the Australia, Singapore, and India and global, where he was driving digital transformation at the enterprises. He worked as a client director, chief architect, or multi-year Mark DT projects, and he has built new markets, foundation for the SWG LOB in Australia and New Zealand, then Asian and India. He worked as a founder and director of two incubation centers, Singa Lab, which is a joint venture with the Singapore government, and India e-business software center, and many more. After 2014, he has co-founded three startups and mentoring at partners with the IBM and Eon Reality AR/VR, which are providing the digital solutions and skill development in the cloud, big data analytics, IoT, augmented and virtual reality, AI, and ML. He has also worked on various projects of e-commerce, smart cities, water management, crime analytics, digital marketing, transport, F&B tech, blockchain, etc. His enterprise clients, which he has dealt with, are the Indian government, oil and gas are the major sector in which he has served. So this is a very brief introduction about the Mr. Lalit Yagnik. I hope this has done the justice with the introduction of this personality. So I welcome you, Lalit sir, and now the stage is to you, sir. Lalit sir.
Good afternoon, and absolutely a delight to meet you all, greet you all from this Zoom platform. And all of us are doing very good out of the biggest challenge world has seen in so many tens of years, which is COVID-19. So it is really an humbling experience of life for not just me, but all of us, that we still keep our spirit high, our morale high, and want to continue learning. So salute to all of you who are absolutely positive and join this webinar. Now, I really hope that over next 1 hour, I do justice to your investment in time, your expectation, And more than expectation, I would like to give what I believe working in industry, what I believe would be of value to you. And as a result, in my session, I have done a lot of planning to convey certain important aspects which I believe are extremely important for not just the students and faculty of any engineering, or for that matter, any student, and particularly with the interest to create value to the industry. I also use this same message, same charts uh, in conferences which are attended by CTO, CIO, and CEOs of various companies, and not only IT companies, but all types of businesses. So I like to convey the same consistent message, and the message is very simple. The message is, what is the role, what is the power of data? What is the power of data, particularly now? Particularly because we are undergoing a major transformation with the use of digital, with the use of data, with the cloud, with the artificial intelligence, machine learning. This is a new word. Let's all accept that. This is a new word. Yesterday's solutions don't work today, and will not work in future. So we got to understand, what do we do? How do I prepare well so that moving forward, if I'm going to industry, I would not only work for old type of projects, which slowly will go down, or not slowly, are going down like this, but how can I even help those companies to win more projects and then help them deliver? So gone are the days where IT person or any engineering graduate or a commerce person thinks, I'll just get out, the company will have a project for me, they will assign to me a project, and then I'll do it and I'll get married and have children. No. They don't have the project ready made for you. Even those they have, they are dying. They need to create new projects so that they can bring more people. To create those projects, they need people like you, young brains, smart brains, clear brains, who design solution, who help deliver that. So design and delivery now is part of you. Earlier it was only delivery. If Indian companies and Indian organizations have to win business, they have to learn to design and deliver. Earlier design was happening in America, and we were delivering here. Now we have to do design, deliver, deliver, design, deliver, design. So if that is of interest to you, and that should be of interest to everybody, to industry, what I'm communicating should be of interest to you students, should be of interest to faculty, and anybody who is trying to bridge the gap between industry and academia, which is me, it's of interest to me. So with that as an objective, I like to convey what we call secret sauce. I like to convey secret sauce of what I have been doing for last 30 years, primarily designing industry solutions to unearth value of data. That's what I've done. Nothing else I've done. So maybe I might have wasted my life, but 30 years of different kinds of solutions. How do we design new solutions so that they can pull out the value of data? Okay. As explains on my chart, last 6 years I have been involved in doing similar things what I was doing earlier with IBM, working with enterprise clients. Now I'm doing more working with startup solutions, some government, some industry, and in fact this week I'm back into industry. Last 10 days I've been working on a government of Singapore project, which is heavily into getting data, analyzing data, and making life of every citizen and resident here interesting, that every time you buy something, you get some points. Every company, every pharmacy or a cinema hall or a samosa seller gives you points back. So as a result, it is generating huge amount of data. So this is last 2 weeks I've taken up an additional role as a CDO of the company, but my number one project right now is Singapore. Anything I'm going to talk about today is data, data, data. And if you get fed up of it, I'll still request you to listen to me because it is extremely important. You may not appreciate it today, not even 3, 4, 5 years, because most of the time it's not in our culture to understand data. We tend to understand programming well, we tend to understand delivery well, but very little on data. While reality is life has gone upside down, data becomes more important than how much rigor you know about programming. So trust me, what I'm saying, that I have whole intention of your future in my mind. And I'm primarily, there might be other people in this meeting, but my target in this call is students. How can I add value to you, your career, your future? So if others find that it is boring, repeating, you already know, my apologies. So with that, I want to switch to the next chart, but I once again bring your focus to power of data. Why is that important? What is that important? What part is that data is important? What is that about that we are going to talk today? But why is it important? So that you get not only mind, but your heart into it, that yes, I'm interested to learn this and apply. And of course, just dreaming alone is not enough. Then you want to know how. Now, I would say that it is, if you have understood that value of data, then you are like those bunsels of Flipkart, because if you go back, what they did was understood the power of data and monetized that. Maybe they didn't get a job in a big company. What they did was they monetized the power of data. So if you really want to do something creative, please understand, even though you may think, is that really important? Okay. So now let me, and I also realize that that I may run out of time. I'll try to finish it, but if not, I'll rather convey and maybe steal आपसे थोड़ा 20-15 मिनट और छीन लूंगा, लेकिन मुझे थोड़ा खत्म करने दीजिए ताकि आपको उसका पूरा नॉलेज हो जाए. एक ही चीज को रिपीट करूंगा so that you understand why, what and how. So even if you go out after this call, I think you would have learned, in my view, in my heart, you would have learned something that is going to stay for the rest of your career, because data is not going to go away. Python may go away, Scala may go away, IoT standards may change, but over next 10, 20, 30 years in your career, data will be the same. Value of data will be the same. Okay, enough of this background. I hope you're beginning to warm up why you should be here. So those who are still sleepy, go get a cup of tea, coffee, and join again. I like to draw on whatever I'm going to talk about is there in this page. If somebody says after this, if our connection breaks, I would have still thought that after this, the power goes out or anything. If you've understood this chart, you would have understood overview of what I'm going to talk about. So let me take you to the charts on the right. The right is all about how much data is getting generated, because now we have a Twitter, Facebook, Google, lots of things what you're wearing, Fitbits, etc. Whatever we're generating, it is generating really lots and lots of data every second. You got to agree with me that yes, 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't the case. It was a small data. Everything was very simple. Data means your name and address and date of birth, etc. Today, everything is data. Audio data, video data, etc. And that's what's shown on the top. So what that has done is, last 5, 6 years, we see lots of cool applications or businesses are mushrooming. All these are, whether it's a new kind of a credit or telecommunication, new kinds of applications, transportation, Uber, Ola, all those came out. They're all data companies. And because so much of data getting generated, because where you are ordering the taxi from, because there are, which are the 5 taxis which are nearby, all that data which is shown on the top of this chart, that is pointing you to, or that is generating such cool applications. I will go not in every industry, but just to take an example of what does it mean? What are those cool industry applications, new kinds of applications which take advantage of data? I'll focus on healthcare, and you might say, why not other areas? I'll focus on healthcare because the organization which is sponsoring this, called Techno NJR Institute, and my fellow panelists are very much involved in new kinds of cancer and other critical disease predictions, and that those are the cool applications. So I want to focus on something which I talk about, but if you want to know more about it, at least there is somebody in Udaipur, being in Singapore, maybe not, but they would be able to take it further. I'm also going to talk about one more case, which I might do it now a little bit, but as of yesterday, between Techno NJR and the number one global number one university, technology university called NTU in Singapore, we have jointly agreed to do a project which leverages the data, all these kinds of cool data coming out of sensors and lot more other data, and create value to protect heritage, such as our Sajjangarh in Udaipur and Chittorgarh in nearby. So again, that's a data application. And all kinds of interesting new kinds of information, new kinds of knowledge will come out in that, protecting that heritage that possibly was not possible, but was not possible 5-10 years ago. But today we would be able to create something awesome, and we hope that that project will put and this just chosen to be Sajjangarh and Chittorgarh. It could have been Lal Killa, it could have been anything. But the fact that the championship is coming from Techno NJR, so what we feel is that we would be able to create something of it, first of its kind. And we already have defined and to some degree high level designed that project. Of course, next level will go on. I hope you understand that. Now, one of the cool applications I just see is at the bottom. Now, what do you see? The bottom, what you see? It's a car. Now, many years ago, if you unbundle the car, you will see somebody in Gurgaon next to Maruti is providing a wheel. Somebody in Pune is providing a dashboard for a car. But you know what? This is not that ordinary car. This is electric vehicle. This is optionally self-driving vehicle, but just an electric vehicle, battery operated. And what do you think its components are? Its components are software companies. Its components are having sensors. Its components are generating data. And those data are exchanging with each other. Instantly, data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence is taking place. And then when when car is being driven, or if it is automatically driving, then data is creating such self-driving applications. So I'm now talking about these cool applications. And some of these cool applications are because massive amount of data is getting generated. And today, one of the most important and a game-changing part is devices like the sensors in these cars are generating it. All good, all good, all good. But you know what? How does this happen? Data is there. How does these applications come out? And I'll tell you one hard reality. Take it from an industry expert. You won't get anywhere closer to who has worked at the most bottom, at the highest level, at the CEO level, as well as at a programmer level. Let me tell you one thing. It doesn't come out in textbooks. But most of the people are going down to अच्छा लाके डेटा दे दो CSV फाइल में मैं ML कर दूंगा ने फटाफट हो जाएगा. Yes or no, Aditya? Reality is that everybody waits for अरे कोविड का डेटा WHO कब देगा तो मैं उस पर एनालाइज करूंगा, ये इसका डेटा कब आएगा so we depend a lot on data, particularly in a research world as well as in an academic world. And that's one of the reasons why all this potential that we do sitting on data applications, it is not going with that high speed in enterprises. You know what? If you go to enterprises, and many times, when I was in IBM and students and everybody comes out with this exciting, hey, give me some data, I like to add. And mostly they will say, okay, I've got this W tool. I have this tool which I will use and create beautiful. I said, yes, go find it. That data is there. Okay, which area you want to work in? Your banking application, go and get it. And after 10 days, after talking to that HDFC Bank or ICICI or SBI, they come back saying that, सर वो तो कह रहे हैं कि डेटा तो नहीं है, आप मुझे कह रहे हैं डेटा ढूंढ लो, कैसे, अब कहाँ से ढूंढूं? एक एप्लीकेशन ये आता है, दूसरा, और मुझे जो आता है वो ये सब मुझे डेटा CSV फाइल में दे दो, सब कुछ होगा तो मैं कर लूंगा. I want to emphasize this point very clearly so that it should hit it right here, right between the eyes. It should hit you. Majority of the times, that data to do analytics. I mean, I say AI ML. That's the highest form of analytics. Before that, simple analytics, predictive analytics. That needs to be done. But if you don't do it on the right data, then it becomes what? GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. I'm not saying garbage, but you need to find right data, take it through a very rigorous factory, chakki chalao, what is that Shole's dialogue? Then only you are able to get the data on which you can do analytics to get real value. And now I'm trying to convey over this next set of charts. I want to talk about every part of these foreign-looking words you may think of: OLTP, OLAP, data pipeline, ETL, dedupe, quality, data lake, lineage, analytics, business intelligence, predictive, data science, data trust, data governance. Unless those are done and understood and practiced, you are waiting for somebody to give you that data. It is like, I don't know how many of you know, I have a very good friend in Udaipur who used to be at Techno in JR, and now he's a government officer, Sandeep Upadhyay. Now, Sandeep Upadhyay, I asked him the question recently. I said, Sandeep loves his samosa. Sandeep loves his samosa. I will do anything to get his samosa. His taste for samosa is fantastic. I told him that, okay, now this is COVID time and all oil is not available in the market, you run out of oil. But I have तिल दे सकता हूँ मैं तेरे को, और एक चक्की चलाने को दे सकता हूँ. क्या करेगा संदीप? या तो तू समोसा खाना छोड़ दे. टेस्ट सर, मैं तिल दे दो, मैं 10 घंटे चक्की चलाऊंगा, तेल बनाऊंगा, तब समोसे बनेंगे. और हम लोग क्या है, बाकी सब लोग दो तरह के लोग हैं. तो संदीप है जो सब कुछ करेगा, तेल बनाएगा ताकि वो समोसे जरूर खाए. और हम लोग क्या करते हैं, नहीं यार, जब तक तेल नहीं आता है तब तक वेट करेंगे, क्योंकि पानी से तो समोसे तलते नहीं हैं, तो समोसे नहीं खाऊंगा, टेस्ट नहीं आएगा, तो फिर मैं वेट करूंगा. तो ऐसा ही सेम थिंग इज विद दिस डेटा. आपको समोसे खाने हैं, टेस्ट को सेटिस्फाई करना है, डेटा एनालिटिक्स ऑफ वैल्यू क्रिएट करना है. इफ यू वांट टू डू दैट, तब आपको तिल लाने पड़ेंगे, उगाने पड़ेंगे, नहीं उग रहे हैं तो चक्की पीसनी पड़ेगी, हर तरीके से फिल्टर करना पड़ेगा, रिमूव जो, ताकि यू आर एबल टू क्रिएट द ऑयल सो दैट यू कैन samosa you can fry in that tail. Now, so please don't go to sleep when I talk about each one of these words, and I will try to explain these words a little bit now. Maybe I'm keeping tab on my time, but as I said, no, that even if I do it now quickly in the next 5 minutes, and then I'll go into the next set of charts. I will then explain in a diagram how these various things fit together. I hope, let me do that, and then if you have a quick question, I can answer. Typically, when you have operational systems like ATM system where you put your card and get the money out, or check system, they are online transaction processing, OLTP. So most of the data which you generate, not the social media data, but enterprise data which you generate, is coming from systems which are OLTP, and they have been around for many, many years, 20 years, 30 years. They're still important because they are the generating the data of truth. Otherwise, without that data, you will not generate anything of value, particularly for business value. And I explain to that why. So that is at the heart of everything. Then OLAP is a term, online analytical processing, is like how fast can you generate simple analytics. So that's the word called OLAP. So between data analytics and OLTP systems, we have something called ETL, extract, transform, and load. Data integration. How do I integrate data? So if somebody has written 1 equal to male, 0 equal to female, and then you have to translate that into another system which does not accept 1 and 0, but that accepts M and F. Or third system that generates only MALE and FEMALE, then we create between those systems something called data pipeline. I mean, that's a very simple example, but in real world, across various systems, you have to set up data pipeline. So the moment you create a new record, a person is joined in, then you may have to pass through that pipeline. Because a new person is joined, you have to advise somebody else, you have to advise check department, you have to advise marketing department, and each may have different systems. So there are data pipelines which connect because it has caused a trigger. Data quality. Unless you have right now building data analytics or machine learning built on a quality data, so you have to address the quality issue. And many of the times the data is incomplete, data has errors, data is duplicates. So all kinds of quality issues is done. But most of the time, because of 30, 40 years of IT, there are lots of data which you pull out through ETL has duplication into it. Somebody has two records. One is in the check system, which is Yogi Singh, while he might have created in another account name as a Yogendra Singh. But you have to go through a process called dedupe, which recognizes, you may apply a little bit of AI also in that area, but primarily algorithms, rule-based, you do dedupe so that you clean that up and recognize that these two records are of the same. So this is the process called dedupe. And all that ETL, data integration, quality, dedupe, finally you load into data warehouse or a data mart or a data lake. Now, what's the difference between all that? Now, it's like if you have all the water which is ready to drink and cleaned, etc., and if it is stored in a container before you fill it up in bottles, that's more like a completely cleaned up, completely improved data to be stored in a relational kind of a format. That is your data warehouse. But if that data is practically dirty data or not so clean data, just pulled it out from Fateh Sagar or from a Ganges river and you store it, and later on you worry about whether I should store or not, etc. And I'll do some analytics on it, I'll do some data mining on it. That we call it data lake. And more these days, because of big data coming from Twitter, some sensors, etc., you don't have yet decided that it is worthy to store it into data warehouse or not. You may store it in data lake. And you can still do some data analytics on that. And then decide that which part of the data is good, which you can take it to data warehouse. Now, ODS, which is called operational data store, and many of the times ODS exists because data warehouse is a very big project. So sometimes departmental level, let's say checking department in a bank, loan department may be a different department and a different system. So what may do is people who are deposits department They're happy to do some analytics on it, simple analytics. So they may just pull out data from operational systems and extract it, store it in a ODS, and do its own data analytics. But it you don't go through too much of ETL process. You simply kind of try to copy it, do a little bit of data integration, and you build some analytics on it. So that's your ODS. So these are all similar looking names, but when you enter into in the industry, you have to understand pros and cons of all those aspects, because what data analytics, machine learning, etc., you will build on depends upon whether you are pulling out from ODS, or you're doing it from data lake, or you're doing it from data warehouse. The tools may be different. The techniques may be different. At a high level, everything looks the same. But when you filter down, then what decision you will make, what team will you select, what skills would you need, could vary. So yes, so coming back to, there is a lot more that goes on from operational data store or from operational systems, which are OLTP, which are extracted, stored into data lake or a data warehouse or a ODS. While doing so, you may mix some data, integrate some data coming from Facebook, coming from LinkedIn, may come from Twitter. You may mix that data with, if it is related to healthcare system, data which is coming from Fitbit. So hospital data, which may be like your OLTP data, Fitbit data, which is sensor data. What is your healthy habit, not habit? What you're writing about health? All that may be coming from Twitter, etc. If you're trying to understand how healthy my friend Aaditya Maheshwari is, I might want to look at data from 360-degree point of view. If that's a goal, and you might want to create business out of that, then we need to go through this process. Okay, I think I've covered most of it. And then once you are ready with the clean data in a lake or in a warehouse or in an ODS, and you've gone through this process, then you are ready to apply simple analytics, call it business intelligence, advanced analytics, call it predictive analytics. You may do machine learning. And I'll talk about one more point, which kind of comes as a very important part, governance. And you might also, while I've highlighted the word data science, because I like to emphasize this word, because many people who are in this seminar, I have invited every student of any branch, every faculty of any branch. And this is very important point I hope you pay attention to. This process of data to analytics, particularly now there's a new field emerging called data science. And I want to spend 1 minute on this data science before I switch to the next part. Data science is made up of 3 important points. One is, of course, data and data analytics and data gathering and data cleaning and data preparation and data engineering. That's one, and all the tools to do things. Second part is some amount of maths, mathematics, and statistics. And I generally say high school level maths is enough. I mean, more can be good, but high school level maths is good. The third part to be a good data scientist is understand your domain. Understand your domains. If you're a chemistry person or you are a mechanical engineering person, you know a lot about chemical engineering person, oil and gas, and what is composed of equations taking place in that. Any kinds of domain expertise, what's the price of oil, all that aspect. 3 things like a triangle it is. All 3 things you have to do in synergy. Now, a professor in mechanical engineering in this meeting and a professor of chemistry sitting in this meeting, I would say this domain is as important, data science is as important to you as it is to computer science. In fact, it is more important to you. I'll explain to you why. Because you know your domain well, one of the 3 triangles. The data and analytics and tools can be weaker part of yours, but your domain expertise is actually much higher than a computer science person will have about chemistry or about mechanical engineering or about the pumps and or about the ventilator which may be pushing air in the lungs. That domain skill is extremely important, and more as we move forward, the tools and the skills to drive that data and data oriented school tools, that skill requirement is reducing. The domain skill is important. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 equal to 111. If you're weak in some, it's still okay. You can even go and get help from a technical computer science expert to help you out with the process of data analytics, the tools of data analytics, but the domain skills are equally interesting. Everybody, whether you're a CS or an engineering or a BCom student, you still should have good high school level maths, some statistics experience. So I can't go in this period of time. Whatever I'm talking about in this chart, I can say it's a one full semester course. I've tried to abstract that in this 1 hour webinar. I would recommend you to now pick each one of these words and do research on it and understand through Google, Wikipedia, talk to people, because it's like, I mean, I can be here because this is something which I've been doing for years and I continue to do it today. But for you, at a high level, the purpose of webinar is to get you a clarity of direction, and then you go into it. Now, one more thing which once I did not mention, which I will bring about, perhaps not so much at academic level, but CTO, CIO, CXO level, we have to have a data governance. Data governance means you collect data from various sources and then you put it through analytics process, and then you generate predictive models, you generate simple analytics using Tableau, etc. You make it look like beautiful charts. How do you know that the data was not fudged in the process? How do you know when you are doing ETL, somebody, there was a salary figure, somebody did not multiply it by 20% or 30%? How do you know? How do you know that you are reporting a company's real assets, multiplying it by 3 times and fool the shareholders? And that data governance is one of the biggest important thing in industry for CXO level people, CEOs level. So however beautiful system AI, and particularly in healthcare, more than any other area, you cannot just like that create beautiful charts and expect people to act on it. And that's why when we are doing projects like that, you have to understand that there are so many other aspects to this data which needs to be understood. Now, when I say data governance, there's a field called, and there are tools in it, data lineage tools, which will track like an audit person. What did you do from the moment you pulled the data out of OLTP, took it through data pipeline, to ETL, to quality, to dedupe? It will track every single action so that you can track iska baap kaun tha, baap kaun tha, baap ka aur baap kaun tha, and beech mein kuch gadbad to nahi kiya hai. And that particular auditing reports comes out of data lineage tools. I know if you do Google search, you'll find what are those tools, which companies provide those tools. And there are governance practices. I played a consulting role in being a data governance, right from 30 years ago with a very large insurance company where chartered accounting company refused to sign up. So I had to do a piece of consulting with them to prove that this data, there is a process which will not allow any deviation. And I would leave that because I think every word in this, MDM. Oh yes, one part which I forgot to mention. Most important part. If Aaditya complains too much about, I'm a Samsung, he complains a lot about, this, and he always does, that this phone has this problem and this phone does not have this cool function and feature. Then, what companies like do? Oh yeah, this guy is a pain in the neck all the time doing that. So how do I please him? Just offer him okay, Aditya, I'm sending you a 50% discount, or chalo totally ek naya phone aaya hai.
But still, I'm Samsung fanboy.
So Aditya is happy, but I'll ask you something. I, as Samsung, If I made a mistake, I had a real customer called Aaditya Maheshwari, and this guy who has been complaining on Facebook also happens to be Aaditya Maheshwari. And what if I sent other other Aaditya Maheshwari unrelated to my customer and phone? What did I do? I wasted money. I I wasted money. The guy who has been just making noises, but he's not the one who is really be influencing. He might just be completely noise. I did not address to the right person. What point is that master data management is very important. MDM is about every company, every enterprise has two things: its customers and its products. And master data management is about strengthening quality, converting your master data gold. You got to have very clean, very simple, a simple way of managing MDM. You shouldn't complicate. Sometimes people write all kinds of messy code, update here, there. No, they are most important so that any big data which you bring in around it, there is a gold standard that connects to all kinds of data. So any company which does not have an MDM practice, my approach as a data governance and data consultant, which I was doing for many years, would be put MDM in place. Of course, there are ways, maturity level, but we start putting MDM as a practice in place. There are tools for it. Okay, I think I have exceeded my time I had planned to spend on it. I will rather run very fast. But what I'm saying is that if I did get disconnected, I hope you have understood that these applications, cool applications in industry don't happen automatically. Somebody has to take through this process. And I find that a lot of the time, because this is not done, we sit and wait, industry sit and wait, companies sit and wait, and sometimes nobody hurts because nobody knows. As a result, opportunities are missed. And those who know how to do this well, you will do much better. So I hope you got the message. I hope you take it to heart. I hope you take each line and read up on this. All right, I'm going to run through very fast and then come back to some very important points. I'll use this example just to tell you why what I just said was important. I will tell you that 7 years ago, I was chief engineer or chief architect for this project, a large oil and gas company. Its CEO sitting in a air-conditioned office. It's an oil and gas company, offshore oil wells. It has oil and gas wells. He wanted to know whether 1,000 pumps which are there in the sea, are they pumping and pulling out right amount of oil? He's CEO, but he wants to know why. Because he wants to know how much money I am losing because X number of pumps are not functioning properly. And he wants to know every hour what amount I'm losing. A very data savvy person, brand new MBA from a top institute from America. He came to Asia, he was appointed. I would say brand new, meaning number of years of experience with executive MBA, did from a top level. He arrives and understands the value of data, but he says, I want to know. No more reports, production people telling me, sir, barabar hai, hamare pump kaam kar rahe nahi. I want to know. And he did not want to know which pump number, not doing what percentage. He wants to know at a high level, how much money am I losing? Because 30% are not delivering right production every day or every hour because it's real time. Because of that, he wants to know at that time what is the price of oil at that particular time from Sensex, equivalent to Sensex. Okay, what is the price of oil, buying, selling, what particular type of oil it is. And if I know that I'm losing $5 million a day, then can I repair? Can I send my repair ship to repair certain pumps which are in the sea? And some of the data related to that also required weather data. Okay, can I send it tomorrow to repair that? But then the weather would be telling you up and down, what is the rise and fall of water, the wind, the rains, etc., because this area is very rough. What needed was data from a sensor from pumps, which is a real-time sensor data from 1,000 wells pumps, which are real sensor fitted many years ago. Siemens, all kinds of pumps exist which have that. That data has to be transported 50 kilometers into the city. That data has to be compared with the data coming from Sensex type of markets. And quick dashboard like this tells you that am I losing revenue? What's the cost? What if I had produced more oil? All that financial data. And is it possible for me to ship the data, supply chain, etc., so that I can recognize revenue by sending it to the pumps, filling all that data. He just wanted very nice looking dashboards like that. I hope you understand. I had to, or our team, at that time I was at IBM, our team had to figure out, and some naive person, and I'm just making a little bit here, some naive person says, sir, मेरे पास टेबल्यू है, सर मेरे पास एक अच्छा डेटा टूल है, फटाफट दिखाएंगे और ऐसे चार्ट बना देंगे. Sounds good. बट वो चार्ट के लिए कौन सा डेटा आ रहा है सेंसर से, वो सेंसर का डेटा स्कैडा सिस्टम में है. अब उस पर एसक्यूएल नहीं लगा सकते हो, नो एसक्यूएल भी नहीं लगा सकते हो. वो हिस्टोरियंस डेटा फॉर्मेट में होता है, टाइम सीरीज डेटा मॉडल होता है. उस डेटा को राइट लाइक लेवल ऑफ एटॉमिसिटी से लेके उसको नॉर्मलाइज करके फिर उस डेटा को कोरिलेट करना पड़ता है प्राइस ऑफ द ऑयल. वो पर्टिकुलर क्रूड का कैटेगरी में देयर आर 3, 4, 5 डिफरेंट क्रूड्स व्हिच यू प्रोड्यूस. उसके बाद हाँ $5 मिलियन का लॉस हो रहा है, तो मुझे आज भेजना है, कल भेजना है, परसों भेजना है. उसके लिए वेदर डेटा को एनालाइज करना पड़ता है, और वेदर डेटा मुझे बताएगा कि ये पर्टिकुलर टाइम स्लॉट फिक्स है. उसके बाद विंड ज्यादा है, आपका शिप रिपेयर करते करते बढ़ जाएगा उधर और डिस्ट्रॉय कर देगा. वो डेटा सब मिला के फिर ये डैशबोर्ड बनते हैं. 1 साल लग गया आपको करते करते. 20% टाइम ये कलरफुल चार्ट बनाने में बहुत कम दिन लगे. टैब्लू और जो डेटा एनालिटिक्स और मशीन लर्निंग करने में 2 महीने लगे, और 10 महीने टू इंटीग्रेट डेटा, टू dedupe the data, to improve the quality of data. SAP से डेटा निकालना पड़ा था क्योंकि उनका जो इन्वेंट्री कंट्रोल कितना है, ज्यादा ऑयल बनाते हैं लेकिन तेल अपना उनका गोडाउन में पड़ा है तो उसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. तो पूरा फाइनेंशियल मॉडलिंग करने के लिए डेटा हर जगह से लेके नॉर्मलाइज करके कनेक्ट करके कोरिलेट करके, दैट टुक गुड पार्ट ऑफ इट. आई एम टेलिंग यू दैट वर्क opened the eyes that it is the data integration, unless we do that part very well at a broader capability. And there's one more thing which I didn't talk about last is, which I want to keep it at the time, data design. Many a times हमारे researchers कहते हैं सर डेटा तो नहीं मिल रहा है, तो कहाँ से लाओगे डेटा डिजाइन, कैसे डिजाइन करोगे? आपको मालूम है इतना डेटा है WHO में या कैगल में, ये एंटरप्राइज है या हॉस्पिटल में, ये डेटा ये कलेक्ट करते हैं. अब उनको दोनों को कोरिलेट करने के लिए बीच में थोड़ा जुगाड़ करना पड़ता है. You might have to design in between data so you can generate realistic data. I'm not saying कि आप 100%, लेकिन we'll have to look at the data and analyze and generate some missing data. Data design is one of the best tool technique one can learn. Not just एक बार एग्जाम में पास कर दिया, BTech exam, and then we are over with. No. And I'm sorry, I'm keep switching to Hindi because if I remain only in English, I don't speak English. I speak Australian, and Australian can be a little bit rough. So by remaining a little bit in Hindi, I'll remain polite. So I'm sorry, IEEE standard may require me to talk in English, but I'll continue to mix the language so that I want to drive the message home. Doesn't matter. If I have to switch to Mewari, I will. But point is, you got to understand, because of this picture, I'm trying to highlight why do we need to do entire part of this extremely well so that we can create value out of AI, ML, simple analytics. I can't stress enough. All right. First thing, we talked in past 10 years, until 10 years ago, data was simple thing, a number, a text, a name, and a salary, and a date of birth, etc., an array, and a string. You use a C, C++, Java, PHP, whatever. Today, we are not talking about those. We're talking about everything, audio, video, all kinds of data. So we always talk about VV of data. So when we talk about big data, it's volume. Amount of volume is increasing. Variety, no more just simple things. But audio, video, everything is data. Velocity, it's coming like this, like the sensors from that oil pump. Every second it is generating data. Security data coming from camera, somebody's going to shoot you or not. All that is, so a typical big data, so much of data, veracity. Sometimes the sensor data is not 100% accurate. Noises, so it's not
Hello.
100% composed.
Hello.
Yeah.
So sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you, sir. Sir, your slide is not visible, sir.
A slide is not visible.
Can you please reshare?
Refresh.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
You
Is it visible?
You can stop share and reshare the slide.
Yeah, you are screen sharing now. Is it clear now?
Yeah, now we are seeing the first page, that power of data.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll come back to the, okay, fine. And if that one happens, I'll go back to view and full screen mode. Are you there?
No, it's not in the full screen mode.
I think you have to select this entire desktop to share the screen.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll stick to this one. I'll stay in this mode. Is that okay? Is that visible?
Yeah, yes, sir. Now it's visible.
Yeah, because as soon as I go into, if I go into full screen mode, that problem happens. So, okay, I'll, if this is visible, I'll keep that. I know there's a little bit of a noise around, but fine.
Sure, sir. Now continue, sir.
So I think important thing is that today in the world of big data, we need to understand what it's a high volume, different variety, audio, video, graphs, charts, click stream, velocity, it's coming at a high speed. The data is not always veracity, meaning the data may not be 100% accurate, missing data, all that. And then final V is, I mean, there may be a pig running around, and if you put a sensor on it and collect data, sure, we can have a volume and a variety and a velocity and veracity, but who wants to collect the movements of a pig? Maybe it's not much of value. So when all these V's are satisfied, we call it real big data. And as you can see, while it looks easy, but there are humongous challenge. It's a tsunami of data. As you can see on the right charts, when I grew up in IT, it was only KB, and then MB happened, and a GB happened, and a terabyte happened. But as we continuously grow, now we're talking about petabyte, zettabyte, yottabyte, and all sorts. One of the things which is generating and which is likely to exponentially go further is the IoT devices. And those devices are only growing in numbers, 7 billion people. Those numbers are growing to becoming more like 50 billion devices. They all are connected on internet, so they're generating lots of data. And so that's only going to increase, creating more data and more data. And that type of data, earlier we talked about simple data, but today we talk all kinds of data, science, biology, astronomy, medical, and entire list which you can see. I think it's a very quick tutorial on types of data we have. We have a structured data which can be stored in a fixed format. We have a semi-structured data which is like, stored in XML or a JSON. And then totally unstructured data like emails, like audio files, video files, etc. So that's the kind of data which is gold. We need to learn to mine it. Okay, this chart is good if you are still awake and if you want to do something great. It's only growing and it will continue to grow. That's the key message on that. And you'll have this chart, so I don't want you to go through every part. What's the most important chart is what is in the red. Even though we may think that everything has happened, reality is very little has happened. Meaning 1 in 2 business leaders don't have access to the data they need. Can you imagine that? Business does not have half of the data on which it is making decisions. That means you have opportunity to create that value. So that's a gap. Don't look at it as a problem. That's opportunity. But yeah, problem is, and that's why my colleagues in Aaditya and my fellow panelists are working on research on medical, because that business leader in a health field are doctors. That means doctors are making decisions with half the information. Now imagine if they had the other half information, who will benefit? Not just doctors, but more than that, we will benefit. So, opportunity. Don't look at it as a problem. Look at this. This is the life of data since IT started. Earlier, in 70s or until 70, 80, I would say until 90s, even though relational database come out theory point of view in 70s, research papers come out, but much of the enterprises started using relational in 90s. I mean, I was lucky. I got a customer project which was in mid 80s, 87, 88, that we started exploiting relational. But most of the large banks, insurances, manufacturing companies started relational in 90s. And that completely changed. The relational, in my view, is the digital transformation 1.0, because more people start getting power of data and analyzing data as gold. Before that, it was rakhna padta hai data. It was a evil. When it was in flat files, it's very hard to read and write. And but what we are watching now, or is number 3. But in between, there was a big focus on OLAP, online analytical processing, decision support system, ODS I talked about. And still many companies are still at number 2. Don't expect because you're getting taught that everybody has moved on. In fact, very few big size employers, organizations have started using big data. Go and talk to any large bank. You will be shocked. They're not using big data. They're waiting for you to help them mine the data. Okay, I talked about before, I'm not going to go into again, oceans of data at rest, because oceans are calm. Streams of data, or more than ocean, lakes are calm, like our Fateh Sagar. Streams of data is data in motion, like Ganga, Himalaya se nikli, Calcutta mein jaake ठंडी होती है, उबलती हुई गंगा है. Data in streams is what is happening. That's our opportunity. To go after that Ganga from Himalaya all the way to that end and mine gold out of that. And more so these days, SQL is found to be too expensive. Not disappeared, will remain, because MDM foundation is SQL. No SQL, but all new kind of a cool, fast, data-oriented applications are on NoSQL. Very quick tutorial on Hadoop, very important for storing NoSQL type of database in an economical fashion, in an efficient fashion, in the way you store, cluster that onto multiple disks, etc. And instead of data, you bring it to do processing, you send processing to the data. Remember that, बहुत change हो गया है. In a traditional world, data को लाते हो आपके पास, फिर उसको process करते हो, उसमें डेटा को डिस्क पे दे दिया और हम वहां जाके प्रोसेस करते हैं. अरे भाई आप वहीं बैठे रहो, भगवान हो, हम आपको प्रोसेस करके एक एक जगह से लेके वापस उसको मिक्स कर देते हैं. तो इन कॉन्सेप्चुअल टर्म, इतना डेटा को 10 भाग में डिवाइड किया on distributed cluster of disk, then start do analytics on each one, do pull that out, aggregate that at a central place, and show value, create the nuggets out of that. So yeah, I can talk about MapReduce as a protocol, HDFS, but you go and read up. This is a game changer, and particularly Spark on top of Hadoop is being used by lots and lots of new stuff. There's also funny looking names like Elephant of Hadoop and Mahout and Ambari, but these are ecosystem. Just like in a relational world, we have a RDBMS, we have a ETL tools, we have a data warehousing tool, analytics tool, management tools. So all these are Mahout, Ambari, language like Scala, Uzi, all those good-looking, funny names to manage big data, to ingest data, to analyze data, to process data. And Spark, again, is building SQL-like fast data in memory kinds of system. All kinds of companies, all kinds of, from Google to IBM to Adobe to Alibaba to Nokia, everybody's using, and that list is, anybody who wants to play in. I think this is one doubt I want to remove. Many people think this versus that. No, we may reduce unnecessary use of RDBMS, but RDBMS provide what we call system of record, meaning something which is master data. You still need to store it on RDBMS. Yes, it's expensive to do that because SQL as a language takes more time, disk, etc., high quality disk, all that. But wherever appropriate, lots of other related data around that MDM, you can consider going into it. I think all kinds of attributes is good to go through. If I was to do a semester course, I will spend 2-hour lecture on this topic only, maybe more. So I think your permission, I realize that my time point of view, I'm jumping in next 5 minutes to try to come to a closure. Industry 4.0. Anybody who says I have no interest in data because it is a computer science, please think again. Please think again. Please think again. Just like Industry 1 was powered by, or factory and everything was powered by water, steam, 2.0 was electric power, 3.0, which maybe India, we may miss that because we kind of late in using computers in factories and industries. But we now have caught up. Most of our companies have now computers to drive their customers and CRMs, etc., governments. But Industry 4.0, India is as ready as anybody else. It's a leapfrog opportunity. In fact, we can get ahead of the world because we are behind in 3 by using IoT. Industry 4.0 is about sensors everywhere. Factory, all parts of factory will have sensors and they start communicating with each other. A factory will have a physical model, which is the factory with sensors, and a factory which we call it a digital twin, which will have a simulated model. Maybe AI applied to virtual reality, AR applied to it. Doesn't matter whether it's just a simulation on a simple computer screen. The two are in sync. If I make a change in here, I can change the factory configuration. IoT is a huge game changer because that drives entire Industry 4.0. So if anybody thinks IoT is techie, I don't need to understand, you're wrong. Just like steam it is. Okay, I've talked many things about it, whether it is a factory, whether it is a home, automatic turning on your lights, automatic warming up, heater, aircon, cars, all kinds of things in Industry 4.0 are powered by sensors. Sensors means more data means more analytics, more ML, and money. So since it is being sponsored by a Rajasthani organization, Rajasthan is very good at Rokra. Everything has to be converted to Rokra. I know there are people from outside joining it, learn from Rajasthan. Everything ultimately, so Rokra kitna milega? It is in data. Rokra is in data. Arab countries enjoy Rokra by having oil underground. Today, India and you as smart people, your Rokra, you're sitting on new oil. I talked about oil as a tail for samosa, but I meant oil for making money, like Arabs made, are still making. Okay, this is one chart which I like you to once again look at. All those data words I talked about, how do they fit in? This and next chart are the architecture. OLTP systems, Twitter, sensors, all that is on the left. They kept sending data. Some data is streaming data. You may apply tools like Kafka, which are analyzing data as the data is moving from Himalaya to, so in that move you're doing analytics. Facebook, Twitter data, you store it in a data lake built on Hadoop, etc. You do some analytics on it. And finally, some data from here, some data from data lake, from streams, you store it in an enterprise warehouse, which is relational generally. And that data you use to generate all kinds of BI reporting, predictive. But mind you, there's a line going directly to. So earlier in past, 5 years ago, when I was talking data warehouse, 10 years ago, when I was talking data warehouse to people, I did not have Hadoop. I did not have streaming. I only had these 2 boxes were missing. And I would say, first build enterprise data warehouse, first put data marts, and then build BI, then do BI predictive analytics, do AI ML. Now you can do some of it before, some of it after you have cleaned everything and put it on enterprise. I hope this architecture is clear to you. If you understand this architecture, this would be your guideline to analyze anything in future. Lifetime data between these systems, data is passing called pipeline. Sometimes you have to do amazing things with pipeline. Sometimes you do pipeline in ETL, etc. I will jump into again that you have this architecturally. Now you show these are the kinds of things you do. Data integration and operational information is smart. And then more importantly, you build variety of analytics application, ML, AI applications. So we may start with a simple, descriptive, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, cognitive, all ultimately as you move towards, they are all AI, ML. But yeah, simple analytics don't have to do AI, ML. You can simply point a Tableau tool to at least know what has happened with the data so far. It's only when you start predicting, when you start doing data mining, when you start doing machine learning to learn a lot more from data using all interesting, good-looking models, so to call, K-means and all those Gaussians, etc. Of course, everybody likes to do because that's the most exciting thing. But sometimes some people have to do boring thing in order to get value out of that. So keep that in mind. Don't, अरे यार ये तो boring चीज है मुझे तो यही करना है. Okay, all right. I'm almost coming towards the end, but I want to do that so that you can catch hold of Aditya, Yogi, Prasun, Gaurav, Chitora, etc. All of them are working on health. And I can tell you health is a big area of value to us, big area for Rokra, because there's a lot of money going into it to improve. And very simple, the current doctors are able to only spend very little time if you look at the problem. 81% doctors can only spend 5 hours per month reading journals, and things are changing so much. So they're limited. They need help. This is where AI, ML, all kinds of data will help. You can identify early warnings like COVID, ICUs, assistant to doctors by doing data analytics. But again, I'll say, sound like a broken record. I am, and I will be, because data which comes out on Kaggle and WHO, and data which is getting generated by each person in that hospital in Udaipur, there's a gap. There's an opportunity to bridge the gap. And that opportunity is there today, but we tend to wait for WHO, and they will not get all the personal data, etc. So you have to work towards Jugaad, bringing that, using all those good-looking words, or not so good-looking data type of words I talked about. All right, precision medicine. This is the direction we are heading into. Medicine designed just for you, because you have a different DNA structure, you have a different family history, you have a different weight, you have a different weight. Today, अरे इसको 250 mg की वो antibiotics दे दो इसको, नहीं, you might need, Lalit may need only 111 gram mg. So that's the direction this industry is going towards, and AI, ML, and data analytics, and data is extremely important value. You can read up this. Obama, there's a 5-year-old story that Obama put 215 million. That number is multiplied since then as an investment. Okay, not just from government, but from private bodies, etc. A lot is happening in this area. So jump into it. And Techno NGR is taking a lead. So, join your hands with them. I think this is what this particular aspect, I'm not going to do it, but who should buy what and how to sell, everybody has interest, including our Bansals of the Flipkart. What customers are looking for, Facebook does the same, all kinds of, Amazon does the same, Flipkart does the same. And if you can figure out that what customer wants, you sell it, you are into. And that's not going to remain only for marketing and good marketing and smart marketing, but new kinds of directions. And because it is IEEE, I thought I'll put a chart how IEEE see as a future directions of data analytics, AI, ML built on data. So data oriented is big data, brain, green, ICT, automatic charging without needing battery, smart grids, life sciences. So unlimited potential you have if you understood that part. And this is IEEE. So thank you IEEE for sponsoring my talk today. And I would still leave you with copy that particular link, because whatever I talked about, if you want to go to single place and learn 75 different terms which I use, you will get it in that. And because you will have access to this chart, you don't have to worry about copying that. But a great place to pick up knowledge. And finally, how can I not talk about something which I see and I pass through so many times at Bangkok airport. Every time I have 2-3 hours in between, I just sit in front of it and stare. Beautiful 40-50 feet on each side. Danav are pulling the rope. Danav and gods are pulling the other side. That Vishnu is standing on that. So this is nothing but Samudra Manthan. And there is, of course, the Sheshnag. The rope is nothing but the Nag. The Sheshnag is pulling that, and Vishnu is on top dancing or whatever. But what is all this about? And you might say, what the heck you're talking about this in a session of IEEE? And let me tell you, in order to get value, and don't worry, this is my last chart. So you need to hear me out. I know there's a nice movie coming on your TV. This is the last chart, but I need to do justice to it, because I've taken those pictures, assembled it. I took pictures of the Kumbh Mela, assembled it so that you get a message. Top is Samudra Manthan and bottom is Kumbh Mela few years ago. Millions of people coming and bathing. If something to do with Samudra Manthan ki wo चार उस समय जो समुद्र से अमृत निकला था, उस घड़े से 4 बूंद गिर गई थी, और वहां हर साल 4 साल में मेला होता है. क्यों? वो एक ड्रॉप पानी में गिर गई तो नहाने से our sins, हमारे पाप धुल जाएंगे. We are still getting value. Millions and millions and millions are getting value for the work done thousands of years ago. And who were working together? Enemies were working together. It was so difficult a job. समुद्र मंथन ऐसा नहीं है कि टेबलू लगा दिया और अमृत निकल गया. Even for gods to team up with enemies, to do things together, so that they had to churn the ocean. And पहला क्या निकला? जैसा टेबलू डाला फटाक से रिपोर्ट अमृत निकल गया? नहीं. क्या निकला? Wish. Poison came out. They had to call poor guy who's easy, Bholanath, to come and drink all that, so that you move to the next, iteration. So when I was talking about all those data dupe and data ETL and data quality and data governance, all that, even gods had to understand ocean very well, do multiple hard work, go and redo, and then come out so that they can put tableau and pull out that one ghada. Same thing. Many people are thinking while they're studying. I learned one tool, BI tool. I learned Gaussian method to do data analytics. I learned K-means. I'm done. Now, so much of domain expertise in, like you have to understand ocean. So chemistry professor, please take a note. You have to understand your domain well. Lot more. Just like gods had to understand their domain of ocean, which they created. I mean, God created a domain. They should have known. Why were they not aware that poison will come out? Hello? That means their domain expertise wasn't good. So they had to learn and try, error and try. So data science is almost like that. But understanding all aspects is as important to you today if you want to go from data to meaningful analytics value to cool applications, which we started this presentation. So yes, there is data. Yes, there are cool applications here. But path between cool applications and this data is all those D I talked about in the agenda chart. So with that, I'd like to thank you, open up the questions, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, sir. So, any participants, if you want to ask the questions, you can put it in the Q&A session part, or you can put it in the chat also. In the meanwhile, we are waiting for the questions from the participant. Sir, I have a question for you.
Yes.
There are two concerns from my side, that when companies are collecting this data, or whether we are getting this data from all around, from various sensors and all those things, how we can put the validation on this data, because sometimes data may be fake kind of thing also, on the same, what we have done in one of our project is like, instead of sending the data through sensor, we were just sending the data from the, by just hitting the HTTP request from our browser and sending the data, some vague values we were sending. So how we can validate, validation of the data whatever we are collecting all over from the various sensors and various sources.
Yeah.
And the
So
second concern what I have is of the, regarding the privacy in this thing. When we are collecting so much of the data, like recently when we were talking so much about the golf, and I was amazed, like I have started receiving the videos related to golf only on my Facebook and all other portals. So there is some, these are the two of my concerns. So can you give some idea about this?
yeah, very good questions. Very good questions, and these are also the, I would call it the breaks why some of these technologies which have so much potential. We all know that there's a potential, but the reason why they do not get implemented at the same speed with which the solutions are available are very same reasons. You said it first one, that how do you know that the data you are getting is really coming from those sensors? How do you know that in between that data is not getting mutilated? I mean, some of the threats happen even at optical fiber level between two data centers when data passes through. I mean, let's say if you are doing from home, but doing some purchase, and until you do the final payment, you enter into SSL, meaning the data from your point to the system is encrypted. But what happens before that? The data is not encrypted, and because of that, a lot of the time, people, hackers go and hack websites and mutilate the website. So there's more and more awareness, and many companies now are adding encryption early on, even before hitting the payment. So you are very right that you will have to design. This is where the data design. When we data design, not just about deciding rows and columns or CSV, comma, what exactly it will be, but also you have to design security in it. You have to design privacy in it. So design security, meaning that if certain data is that important on which life or death depends on, let's say sensor data, then you will want to make sure that from sensor to where it is getting processed, it is encrypted. So nobody else can touch with it. Then there are all kinds of mechanisms that when you left the data from source to the destination, even the ways by which you can constantly check, which are there in some of the protocols, that what you generated is what you are receiving or not, because checkpoints, all kinds of algorithms exist. So higher the importance of data for the privacy or for the security point of view, higher levels of security and privacy processing you'll have to do. But that's all part of the data design. And you can't do it at a blanket level later design. For example, 80% of the data you are taking from one place to other place is okay, even if it gets compromised, you may be okay with that. But if it is related to privacy, that is a healthcare data, and if it relates to an individual, then you may not be allowed to transport the name of the person, etc. If you have to do it, you have to do it in an encrypted fashion. And you will only give it to those who have signed a policy of data sharing. So what I'm saying is that this all partly comes into data design. And second time it comes into data governance. So data design alone is not enough. Then there has to be a policy to doubly check that whatever I have designed in operation, as is that being followed or not. So there are governance policies, there are tools which keep tracking all that. There is an audit report which is coming out, who sent what data, what time, which user sent it, which user received it, was there any fiddling in between. So all kinds of tools and technologies and methodologies exist, policies exist. Some still require manual processes, some require even signing, that not only the one doctor will sign it, but his three layer above doctor also will sign it. So there are ways by which you address it in data design and in actual run through governance. I mean, these are again a very big areas. Data governance. There are practices which many companies run, specializing in. IBM has a practice in data governance. I mean, I spent good part of it once working in the department. Data governance was offering which we did for a fee.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the answer. So we are waiting for some more other.
I have a question.
I'm in trouble now. Yeah.
So before that, I think we do have a question in Q&A as well.
Yeah.
An anonymous attendee have asked that fake data can be easily generated. So if you can look into the Q&A section, you will find this question, sir. Then I'll ask my question.
I don't have any. I see, Adi, your question.
Okay.
Oh, is that?
Hello.
Is that I see a cleans data regularly and when? Oh, you have answered it. Okay.
So there is one question for you, sir. So
we have a question.
Okay, we have a question. Sorry.
Is that the question? Fake data can be easily generated?
Exactly, sir.
Yeah, I think this is also a very good question. Fake data can be generated, and we need to protect that fakeness. So whatever it is I mentioned to you, we have to put additional processes in place, tools in place to make sure that this does not happen in a real system. Now, let me also extend this question a little bit. Sometimes you may have to generate data in order to bridge the gap, because you have some data where you want to go is a higher level, but you don't have in between data. So this is particularly happens in a data warehousing scenario, that you want to get some data, but you don't have that data. All operational systems, Facebook, etc., you went out and collected, but this is what you managed to get, but this is what is required. Analytics will be only valuable, or machine learning will be only valuable if I get all these parameters. Now, what do I do? How do I get that? Now, this is time where you have to assess how can I mean, data wrangling, data munging, all those methodologies come into place, which I haven't gone into, because when I mentioned machine learning, there are new kinds of words, but basically generating data in order to create bridging the gap. Sometimes there are statistics you apply. So there are various methodologies you do based on the domain. So again, I come back to the knowledge that cannot be done. You cannot simply say, "Yaar, iska average salary le lo." No, depends upon what's the domain. You have to understand. You have to get a feel for that data, and then you can say, okay, the best approach would be if I apply, whether it should be a mean or is it, mean of mean, whatever it is. Yeah.
So thank you for the answer. Now I have my question. If you allow me, then I can ask you.
Yeah.
So my question is like, it's based on your current answer, that most industries, today are resorting to data and analytics. I mean, for accomplishing their tasks that were earlier thought impossible given this size, with this disparity and even uneven distribution. So it has become a crucial part of the overall working of most companies, that it goes without saying that the availability of right data is the most common problem in industry they are facing. So which plays a crucial role in building the right model. So can you elaborate that how to manage a constantly changing data? right? The nature of data is constantly changing right now. So customers details, or we can say orders, are always changing, maybe in the term of the Amazon. So how to create a right model, to play with those data, or how to create insight in such a way that it makes sense for of it all to drive profitable business decision. I mean, too much data can take the focus away from the explainability and lead to data paralysis. So what is your take about this, sir?
Yeah, no, very good question, because many organizations are totally confused. They understand at a high level that there is a value in data, but then on the other end, this technology industry, IT industry, is bombarding with all these names, data analytics, showing all these colorful charts and value is there, and sometimes all these complicated terms around it, AI, ML, and we are all part of it. Okay, fine. But typically, uh, each organization has to understand that data is not a one-time project. It's a journey. Data analytics and creating value is a journey. Number two, you will start getting more value in project 2, 3, 4 as you start enhancing the scope of the data you consider in analytics. But that doesn't mean that you can start with everything together. So you have to start with one project first. And sometimes you start doing analytics and then you realize, aha, this is the value. I need to now focus more on this aspect. So it's again not one time thing. You start with some activity because it should be based on your business outcome. What is your business? What value you are trying to achieve from that? Do you want to increase revenue? Do you want to increase market share? You want to increase the image in the market? And based on that, so it should be driven from what outcome you want to achieve, and then see left. It should not be, I've got all this data, so let me create a data lake. No, or data warehouse. No, that's a totally wrong approach. It's a pitfall people should avoid. It should start from what are your analytics requirements. So even before, what would you do in terms of your key performance indicator if they are improved, if you increase market share or you want to increase profit from your projects or a product, or if you want to improve the image. Based on that, you go left, that these are the requirements I have. So what data lake or data warehouse or a data mart I must have, what data should be in it so that I can produce that. Now you go back, how do I collect that data? Now you find that, okay, I have my own operational OLTP systems. I get customer transactions from there. I get customer information from there. And then I have to say these coming from two different systems. I have to put it to right ETL. I do quality improvement, all that I do. Then I realize that, okay, that only covers 60% of the data, which I need to produce my analytics. So where is the 40% data? What does that person do on the weekends? If it's related to customer, I'll find some of that data on Facebook. Oh, what is his view about his buying pattern? Oh, I'll find some of his opinion on Twitter or whatever. Now you start collecting that data, and you will find that you may still be able to get 80%, 90% of the data. You may still go ahead and do your machine learning. You can still go ahead and do your data analytics and take some decisions. And then find that, that 7% missing data is extremely important, which I must have in my data mart or I must have in the data lake. How do I go about getting that? Okay, I could buy that data. I could create a new system to capture that data. I give you an example, the project I'm working on right now. Maybe there are parties who are interested in collecting data about maybe 5 pharmacies have decided that, or one pharmacy decided that I want to collect that data, what kind of medicine citizens, residents in Singapore want to buy. Let me give them 5% discount who come and use this system. As a result, I'll get that data. So its answer will never be that I'll sit and wait for all the data to be ready, available in CSV format on Kaggle or on, and that works very well in research world, but in real world, the data journey is one of the most important journey, and Why I harp on this is that unfortunately, the skills required and the knowledge required to do that is not very good, because it does require a lot of data thinking, data design thinking, domain thinking, and much of us, we come and learn quickly. Okay, this programming language Python, we learn the mean, we learn this, we learn that, but then because of that gap remains which nobody else fills, it becomes a sort of a break in generating value for the enterprise. So I think more and more enterprises are going into that direction. More and more enterprises, they want to buy AI solutions, and some of them are even able to pay $50,000 to it, but it becomes a shelfware. They are not able to deploy it because solution is there, but data is not there. Are you getting my point? I have a tool to do analysis, but it does not go beyond pilot project, first project. The IT company who sold the software is happy, they've sold the product, but they don't grow, because if that same company, let's say, applied it in 10 projects, the software company also will make more money because the 10 licenses would be required. But somehow the problem is too big to, all right, guys, you leave this tool, whenever you're ready, you do it. So it's a hidden opportunity which exists, and opportunity exists for everybody. It's a hidden opportunity which is there for many new startups to identify in their different domains and bridge the gap. It won't come in कि sir मुझे data दे दो, वो नहीं होगा. So all those people who are looking to either create value in large enterprises as employee or as startup people, or create startup solutions, whether it is for money or for value creation for society. I'm not saying everything is for money. For value creation, and you want to realize that value, you will have to learn data and data journey, data life cycle. So if I was to summarize some of these words, data life cycle until analytics, and even after analytics, because what actions you take. So a little bit of a management of how businesses make decisions also need to be understood. So I think that's my long answer to your sweet short question.
Okay, sir, thank you very much. We have a question from Dr. Pankaj Porwal, that there are some stories about some Silicon Valley CEOs keeping their children away from digital technology, as it may hamper their mental or the cognitive growth. So what is your opinion about this concern, sir?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I like to put that as a discipline called change management. And the change management has been around since humans, maybe thousands of years. Any change, people resist, and any change, people start worrying about what it will do. So the fears of a change is always there. And change management is about, decomposing what the fears and risks are. Some may be a correct risk or a valid risk, genuine risk. Some may be just the fears, and tackling each risk and identifying what is the risk mitigation. So it's very hard to answer a question so blankly, but yes, these are also the concerns. Some are real, some are fears, and that need to be addressed. And yes, maybe they do have, because our brain is very complex, so what impact it has in the cognitive development, in the motor skills development also, because of these issues. So I would have to say that has to be broken down into, it has to be decomposed into parts, and then whoever is responsible, whether it's the parents, whether it is the counselors, whether it is the governments, they will have to address these risks. So where there are real risks, it has to be done through whatever method, but ultimately it will be an individual decision. Some will take risk If it's a calculated risk, they will get reward. But yes, I mean, getting that vaccine injection also is a risk. But there would be a reward of COVID, but you never know what it may do. so, so that's a risk. I mean, right now, whole Australia is right now screaming out, "I don't want to take vaccine," while government is saying everybody will have to get vaccinated.
It's mostly risk.
It is a risk, but whether it's a real risk, but if it is going to affect people's brain, that hey, I don't want to be bulldozed by being told that you'll have to take that. That also is affecting my feeling of freedom. Okay, even if there's no, who are you to tell me? So there are all kinds of issues need to be tackled. But as again, Pankaj, my simple answer is it's a change management issue, and change management is never standard. Some places same change works. In some cultures, the same change does not work. So you'll have to find a solution for it.
Thank you, sir.
I think there's a question from
Yes, sir.
Abhishek Sharma.
Yeah.
The last few years, we have seen a rapid explosion in the volumes of industrial data manufacturers generate and collect. Storage management systems have failed to keep pace so far. What do you say about this? You are absolutely right that the storage limitation has been one of the inhibitor, even though the understanding that the data can be of tremendous value, and I would say relational was being stretched the envelope. People were writing everything on relational, and that reached a limit. The cost became the limit, the physical limitation became the limit. So that was one limit. The second limit became also to bring data in a central place. I mean, that gave rise to what we see likes of Hadoop systems, where the data is kept in a distributed cluster and you send processing there. Instead of bringing data to central place and do processing at central, you started doing. So with advent of Google's HDFS, because that were a startup and they couldn't afford to have all this expensive disks, so they just in their garage, while it was still a startup, started collecting low cost commodity used computers, and that gave rise to HDFS, which became a Hadoop, and its variants now all kinds. I think some of those problems are getting addressed to lower cost of storage, lower cost of processing, such as Hadoop. So I think that is an issue, and it's also getting solved now. So now today we can say that yes, there is a very large amount of storage at affordable cost, and it's becoming less of an issue.
Thank you very much, sir, for the answers. And I guess all these
No, we
answers.
do have other question as well.
Do we have some questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have one question in chat also from Tanu Sharma. That what should be the steps for beginners to start with data, like whether they should start with language or with the knowing the depth of data.
Just before I answer that question, I answer Abhishek's question just with one example. A few years ago, a large bank, but that was long ago, 7 years ago. This particular question, Abhishek, you asked me. That question was the starting of. I was asked the same question: what do we do? So much of data, I can't afford it, and that's where this Hadoop was considered because of the cost of. Sometimes you enter different motivation to introduce Hadoop. There, the cost was the issue, and it's a very large. I won't mention the name of the bank, with the Asia Pacific headquarters in Singapore. But we approached this project primarily by reducing the cost per gigabyte. So they were measuring everything cost per gigabyte on a standard systems, file system, relational database system. So that economics turned out to be very attractive. The question is, sorry, what was the question? Just now you asked a question on.
Yes, sir. Sir.
Yeah, where do
So
I
like,
start? Yeah, got it. Yeah. So I would say that you got to take programming and data almost together. I would say that if you understood data well, and if your interest is not just to solve some programming challenges, which is complex programming, so there are two different spaces. So from an interest point of view, if you're purely interested in solving algorithms and complex problems, sure, you can learn programming language, etc. But my suggestion is you may not need too much of complex programming if you are associated with data, but still it may help you if you understand enough of depth of data. Simple things like relational database design. And I don't mean simply creating a table, that's not design, but if there's a use case, how do you break that down into data? First, start with a relational entity relationship diagram, third level normalization. All that will do is it will start exercising your brain in terms of how do you logically structure entities, connect, joins, etc. Now, today in actual system, you may not have to do that because today's system, NoSQL programming point of view, you can start throwing tools at NoSQL database. You really need to learn. All those are, you may not need that, but as a exercising your brains, understanding where everything goes, that's a starting point. But SQL, NoSQL, understanding data, understanding what is data, decompose it down to the bits and byte level, where it gets stored, how bits and bytes compose a column or a field, how that constitutes a record, how do you store record in a SQL database or a NoSQL database, what kind of processing you do. So going through that analytics path and coming back to data path, if you can start understanding that in the simplest use case fashion, that's the only way you are going to learn. Theories help, learn theories, but unless you start applying that in your own use cases, sometimes you don't get a feeling of it. And through that, you have to learn how do you design new data, how do you capture new data, what kind of system you need. Of course, you still need a lot of programming. You need programming to create that data, design to implement. You need programming to do data analytics. Call it machine learning algorithms. Call it script you write for Tableau. Even for Microsoft Excel, when you create filtering, when you do some macro, they're all programming. Even to summarize a Microsoft Excel columns into something, filter, that's programming. Because your mind is, how do I manipulate data? So the point I'm going to say is that do programming, but to understand data will help you to do better programming. Your end goal now in today's world is how do I get value out of data? Sometimes you'll have to go very complex solution using programming methods. So do that. But programming for the sake of programming, unless you are interested in writing some computer games or a new method of solving complex equations, and you do that too. I mean, you do that too. But even that would involve programming. Even if you're solving molecular movement within a complex chemical equation, and you may be using in future quantum computing because you need awesome power. You still be doing complex programming, but to do what? To change the state of data representing that molecule from state A to state B. So you're still dealing with data part of it. So start with simple thinking of everything rotates around data. Everything rotates around it. I mean, I say everything, I may be exaggerating, but good part of industry-oriented commercial solutions for which most people are hiring people revolves around data. And yes, in a project, sometimes you find 10 people team, let's say in Infosys or TCS or IBM or Accenture, you may find 8% are working on programming and building systems, and 2% are, 20% or 2 people out of 10 is working on data. That equation is changing. That equation is changing towards more people of data skills, because they are not doing OLTP type of applications. More and more they are doing data analytics, machine learning type of applications. So you see, we got to, it's a bar is changing, the goalpost is changing. So understand that part. And when I say something, it is not written in gold. I'm just giving you a rough estimate. I mean, some companies will continue for next 10 years building systems for old style projects or programming oriented projects. But some companies, I would think, will be doing a lot more data analytics projects, because a lot of automation has happened. In the world, automation has happened. More people are interested in, the CFOs are not releasing money for just doing automation. Now they are looking at what value will you generate for me? Will you give me more analytics? Will you give me more insight into data? Then they say, okay, here is $10 million, go spend on another project. Earlier, it was not the case. Earlier, can you reduce number of people who are operators or whatever, which is automation? So again, long answer to Tanu, your question. I would say keep data in your mind, pick up some use cases, start. Always keep that in mind. Go as best you can in programming. Ultimately, the fun is in programming. Data is hard work. Data is sometimes boring work. It's almost like a cleaning job. It's a plumbing job at times. But if you don't do that plumbing job, you have to create that pipeline. So in order to,
yeah, in almost time it's boring.
Yeah, I mean, but then I started my discussion with my friend, my dear friend, Sandeep Upadhyay, right? He loves his oil fried samosas, that he's happy to get till, he's happy to get his chakki, he's happy to do all the groundwork so that he produces oil, so that he can fry his samosa. Now, that's where the value is. So if you want samosa, Sandeep is willing to do that. If you want analytics, you'll have to understand data and data pipeline. You'll have to become Shiva to also consume not only boring, but also take dangerous poison also. So you got to understand data to find Amrit. You got to understand that. And I think more and more, and it's not a message only to you students here. This is a message I have conveyed to top-notch industry professionals, that we got to get ready for generating value for our clients. They're looking for value from data. I would say that you being sharp brains who are listening to this, and I'm not saying do it for what I am saying. I took this whole storytelling method to convince you logically. If you don't see logic, don't jump into what I said. Investigate more. I have no issue. No ego will be heard of Lalit. Lalit, अरे वो तो बोल गया ये सब कुछ, उसको कहने से थोड़ी, और मुझे तो क्या आप स्टडी करो. But as a logical mind, I should have put कीड़ा in your head कि सही है या नहीं है, करने से क्या फायदा होगा, आप और पढ़ो. If you have any questions, call me. But I'm totally convinced that if you do this, yeah,
Okay.
you'll get value.
So we have one more question from some anonymous attendee. Like, why the big tech giants hide themselves in their world from data? Means, if they have so good technology, then why there once picture viral of Mark Zuckerberg covering his MacBook mic and camera with a piece of tape, sellotape?
Is this person on phone, or is this question
No, it's in
only
the
on?
Q&A. It's in the
Yeah,
Q&A.
because I can't get the gist of. I understand. I put a piece of tape over the camera because I saw somebody smarter than.
That's what
I
one
had
of the answer Aditya has given.
Look, I think this is interesting question. Some of these are, life is what it is. Life is lots of realities. If you start thinking of a lot of logical questions, and that's why all these are question mark questions. Big tech giants, who are they? Just because they have big tech giants, they don't do everything what is there. Also, there are people, some of them do things, and big tech giant decision making is never one person. One department makes it, other department makes different one. Sometimes they collide. Same thing happens in our parliament also. What happens? Does our Lok Sabha always come out with the best decisions? If you want to ask the question, it's a logical question. So questions is, I think we need to understand that it is not a simple question. Data is gold. Data is value. It's easy to say that, but then you have to decompose that statement. You have to decompose that opportunity statement. That what does it mean? And what does it mean? वो ट्री का टॉप से लेके उसका लीफ तक जाना होगा. बहुत बड़ा banyan tree है वो. बहुत सारी branches हैं. बहुत सारी interdependencies है. So it's a good question to ask. But the person who asked, I would ask you to answer that question. For that, you'll have to learn what is a big tech giant, why they make the decision what they make. Is that the share price which they're trying to attract? They want to increase. Who doesn't want? They're not out there just to वो मंदिर में बैठे पुजारी नहीं हैं और monk नहीं हैं. They all have to do things. Either they are employees or the shareholders or Mark Zuckerberg himself. Everybody has their imperatives. Of course, through service they make money, so that they make money so that they to provide service. So these are all very intricate business, world, life questions. But I would say that yes, ultimate value is in getting value. Sometimes people hide their data so that others don't get value. You see, people just war is taking place because somebody has taken land position. Now the wars are taking place in a new world where I'll keep my data to myself, so I get value out of that. I don't want to give it to others. I want to put a tape on my so that so nobody does not steal my data. Nobody knows what am I doing. These days with interconnected internet world, anybody can come and destroy my computer. So if I'm too scared, what will I do? I will never connect. so all kinds of greed, you call it, but I don't want to use those heavy duty words. Business objectives, you call it, fears, you call it, concerns, you call it. Some are real, some are not. If you combine all kinds of imperatives, that creates behavior. So let's come down to, we cannot boil the ocean. Yes, that kind of a question only the God can answer, who can boil the ocean. I feel that yes, it's not one person's opportunity. There's so much of data. You have to figure out which data is of value. You figure out the value. You create value. You execute the value. You monetize the value. You create value for your counterpart. You meaning it can be one person, it can be a company, it can be a multinational. So at different levels, you generate different value.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So I guess there are no more questions from participants or any attendees. So we are at the end of our webinar, today's webinar. So thank you very much, sir, for